He wore a $20 thrift store jacket to his 10-year reunion. She wore a simple black dress that everyone thought was cheap. When the class bully cornered her, mocking her for being the poor scholarship kid all over again, the struggling single dad risked the little social standing he had left to defend her honor. He thought he was saving a broke waitress from a cruel joke. He had no idea that the woman standing behind him had just sold her AI startup to Google for $3 billion. And what happened next didn't just shut down the bully. It changed the entire economy of their small town. This is the story of Ethan Wright and the reunion that changed everything. The envelope on the kitchen counter was bright pink. In most worlds, pink meant a birthday card or a party invitation. In Ethan Wright's world, specifically in the crumbling neighborhood of East Derby, Pennsylvania, pink was the final warning from the utility company. Ethan stared at it, the grit from a 12-hour shift at the construction site still clinging to his eyelashes. He wiped his face with a calloused hand, smearing drywall dust across his forehead. The house was quiet. His 7-year-old daughter, Lily, was asleep in the next room, her breathing heavy. The rhythmic wheeze-hiss of her nebulizer earlier that evening still echoed in his ears. $72, Ethan whispered to the empty room. He opened his banking app. The screen glowed with a cruel, bright number. $41.50. He did the math. He always did the math. Gas to get to the site tomorrow. $6. Lily's school lunch because he forgot to buy bread. $3. That left him $32 shy of keeping the lights on. He sat heavily on the second-hand sofa, a spring digging into his lower back. He was 32 years old, and he felt 80. Since his ex-wife, Jessica, had left 3 years ago, tired of the struggle and chasing a lifestyle Ethan couldn't provide. He had been the sole anchor for Lily. He worked 6 days a week pouring concrete, and on Sundays he fixed cars in the driveway for cash under the table. It was never enough. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. It wasn't a bill collector this time. It was a text from Mike, his only friend left from high school who hadn't moved away to Philly or New York. "Mike, you coming tonight? Don't leave me hanging, man. Class of 2014. 10 years. Ethan typed back. "Can't. Tired. No cash. Mike, I already paid for your ticket. Drinks are on me. Come on. You need to get out of that house. You smell like wet cement and depression." Ethan sighed. The reunion. The Oak Creek High class of 2014 reunion. The last place on earth he wanted to be. High school hadn't been terrible, but it was a reminder of potential he hadn't lived up to. He was supposed to be an architect. He had the grades. He had the acceptance letter to Penn State. Then his dad got sick, the college fund went to chemo, and the architecture degree turned into a certification in heavy machinery operation. He looked at the pink envelope again. If the lights went out, Lily would be scared. He stood up and walked to the closet. Pushed to the back, behind his high-vis vests and flannels, was a suit jacket he'd bought for a funeral 4 years ago. It was charcoal grey, a little tight in the shoulders now that he spent his days lifting concrete blocks. Just for 2 hours, he told himself. Free food, maybe leftovers for Lily. It was a pathetic thought, going to a reunion to scavenge food, but pride was a luxury Ethan sold a long time ago. He called Mrs. Higgins, the elderly neighbor who watched Lily for $5 an hour, and begged her for one more favor, promising to fix her porch railing on Sunday for free. He scrubbed the drywall off his face, put on the tight jacket, and looked in the mirror. He saw a man who was trying. He just hoped it was enough to survive the night without falling apart. The Oak Creek Country Club had undergone a renovation since Ethan last saw it. The driveway was paved with fresh asphalt that smelled of tar and money. As Ethan pulled his rusted 2008 Ford F-150 into the lot, the contrast was physically painful. To his left was a Porsche Cayenne. To his right, a sleek, white BMW M5. Ethan parked his truck as far back as possible, near the dumpsters, hoping the shadows would hide the dent in the bumper and the missing hubcap. He walked toward the entrance. The bass of a nostalgic 2010 S pop hit thumping through the double doors. He checked his pockets. No wallet. Just his ID and keys. He couldn't accidentally buy a drink, even if he wanted to. Inside, the banquet hall was a sea of balloons and forced laughter. Name tags were plastered onto chests like price tags. "Ethan." "My man." Mike appeared from the crowd, holding 2 beers. Mike looked good. He managed a car dealership now, wearing a suit that actually fit. "I told you I'm not drinking," Ethan said, raising a hand. "It's open bar for the first hour. I already tipped the guy. Take it." Mike shoved the cold glass into Ethan's hand. "Relax. Look around. It's not that bad. Look, there's Sarah Jenkins. Still has the braces. No way." Ethan took a sip. The beer was cold and bitter. He scanned the room. He saw faces he recognized, but they were distorted by time. The football players looked softer, the cheerleaders looked tired, and the quiet kids, well, some of them looked expensive. "Check it out," Mike nudged him, pointing toward the center of the room. "The king has returned." Ethan followed Mike's gaze. Standing in the middle of a circle of sycophants was Braden Sterling. Braden had been the quarterback, the prom king, and the guy who made Ethan's sophomore year a living hell by putting glue in his locker. Now Braden looked like a caricature of success. He was wearing a suit that shimmered under the lights. Too blue, too shiny. He was talking loud, gesturing with a glass of scotch. "I'm telling you," Braden's voice carried over the music. "Crypto isn't dead. You just have to know when to leverage. I pulled in 6 figures last month just on the volatility alone. My team in Miami is crushing it." "He's still a loudmouth," Ethan muttered. "Yeah, but a rich loudmouth," Mike said. "He's a regional VP for some tech sales firm now. Leases a Lambo. Posted it on Facebook." Ethan watched Braden. There was something desperate in the way Braden scanned the room, making sure everyone was watching him. He was fishing for admiration. Then Ethan's eyes drifted to the edge of the room. Near the dessert table, standing completely alone, was a woman. She was looking at a tray of macaroons with intense fascination. She wore a simple black dress. No jewelry. No designer purse. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore thick-rimmed glasses. "Is that Sophia?" Ethan asked, squinting. Mike looked. "Sophia Corinne? The girl who sat in the back of Calc and never spoke? I think so. Man, she looks rough." "She looks normal," Ethan said. "Normal is code for broke in this room, Ethan. Look at her shoes. Those are canvas flats. Everyone else is in heels." Ethan felt a pang of sympathy. He knew what it was like to be the person in the room who didn't belong. He watched Sophia pick up a strawberry and eat it slowly. She looked tired. Not the physical exhaustion of construction work, but a deep mental fatigue. "I'm gonna say hi," Ethan said. "Why?" Mike laughed. "Go talk to Jennifer instead. She's single and just got her real estate license." "Because she's alone, Mike." Ethan walked away from his friend, weaving through the crowd. He approached the dessert table. Sophia didn't notice him at first. She was busy reading the ingredients card on the chocolate fountain. "I wouldn't trust the chocolate," Ethan said softly. "I saw a kid stick his finger in it 5 minutes ago." Sophia jumped slightly, then turned. Her eyes, magnified by the glasses, widened. "Ethan Wright. You remember me?" "Hard to forget the guy who fixed my flat tire in the pouring rain during junior year," she smiled. It was a genuine smile, the first real one he'd seen all night. It reached her eyes. "That was a long time ago," Ethan chuckled, leaning against the table. "How have you been, Sophia?" "Busy," she said vaguely. "Very busy. Just working a lot. What about you?" "Oh, you know." Ethan looked down at his boots, realizing he hadn't polished the scuffs out. "Construction. Keeping busy. Raising my daughter." "You have a daughter?" Her face lit up. "Lily. She's 7. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. Expensive, but the best. Sophia laughed. Kids usually are. I don't have any. Just a cat named Algorithm. Algorithm? Ethan raised an eyebrow. You still into computers? I remember you hacking the school library system to bypass the firewall. Sophia blushed. I dabble. Mostly back-end stuff. It pays the rent. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Ethan liked her. She didn't look at his cheap jacket or his rough hands. She looked at him. So, Ethan gestured to the room. Why come back? If you're just dabbling in computers, this place must feel like a shark tank. Curiosity, Sophia said, glancing toward Braden Sterling, who was now loudly bragging about his Rolex. I wanted to see if people actually change. Spoiler alert, Ethan said. They don't. Well, 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 a booming voice interrupted them. Ethan stiffened. He knew that voice. Braden Sterling sauntered over, flanked by two guys who used to be linebackers. Braden smelled of expensive cologne and cheap whiskey. He looked Ethan up and down with a sneer, then turned his attention to Sophia. Sophia Corinne, Braden grinned, his teeth bleached white. The ghost of Oak Creek High. I didn't think you'd show up. I assumed you were too busy. What was it? Fixing routers at Best Buy? The two goons laughed. Ethan felt his fists clench. Leave it alone, Braden. Braden ignored Ethan completely. He stepped closer to Sophia, invading her personal space. No, seriously. I heard you moved to San Francisco. Did you finally strike gold, or are you one of those starving artists living in a closet? He reached out and fingered the fabric of her simple dress. Cotton? Nice. Very frugal. Sophia didn't back down, but she looked uncomfortable. She adjusted her glasses. I'm doing fine, Braden. It's good to see you. Doing fine? Braden laughed, turning to his audience. Guys, she's doing fine. That means she's broke. Hey, look, no ring. No husband? No money? What a surprise. You know, my company is hiring receptionists. If you need a referral, I can maybe pull some strings. You might have to upgrade the wardrobe, though. The circle around them tightened. People were watching. Some were snickering. It was high school all over again. The predator circling the prey. She said she's fine. Ethan stepped in, moving his body between Braden and Sophia. He was broad-shouldered from lifting steel beams, and for a second, Braden looked surprised. Whoa! Braden held up his hands mockingly. Easy there, Ethan. I didn't know you were her bodyguard. Or are you two together? The construction worker and the IT girl, a match made in the unemployment line. Back off, Ethan said, his voice low. Go brag about your crypto somewhere else. Braden's eyes narrowed. The playful mask dropped. Excuse me? You want to say that again? I'm wearing a suit that costs more than your truck, right? Don't think for a second you can talk to me like that. The music seemed to fade into the background. The air in the immediate vicinity grew heavy. I don't care about your suit, Ethan said, his heart hammering against his ribs. He knew this was a bad idea. Braden had connections in town. Ethan's boss, Mr. Henderson, played golf with Braden's father. Getting into a fight here could cost him his job. But he looked at Sophia's face, humiliated, but silent, and he couldn't stop. I care that you're acting like a child, Ethan continued. She hasn't done anything to you. She's here to have a good time, just like everyone else. So take your drink, take your buddies, and walk away. Braden laughed, a harsh, barking sound. You've got guts, right? I'll give you that. Stupid but gutsy. Braden took a step forward, chest puffed out. He held his glass of red wine loosely. You know, I was going to buy a round for the house, celebrate my promotion. But now, I think I'll just focus on cleanup. With a casual, deliberate flick of his wrist, Braden tipped his wine glass. Red liquid splashed across the front of Sophia's black dress. It soaked into the fabric instantly. The crowd gasped. A few people covered their mouths. Oops, Braden smirked. My bad. Clumsy me. Don't worry, Sophia. It'll wash out. or just throw the dress away. It's what, $10 at Walmart? Sophia stood frozen, looking down at the stains spreading across her chest. Her hands trembled. Ethan saw red. He didn't think. He didn't calculate the gas money or the utility bill. He reacted. Ethan grabbed a pitcher of ice water from the table behind him. In one fluid motion, he swung it forward, dousing Braden Sterling from head to toe. The shock was immediate. The ice cubes clattered against Braden's expensive suit. His hair plastered to his forehead. He stood there, dripping, his mouth open in disbelief. "Oops," Ethan said, his voice hard. "Clumsy me." The room went dead silent. Braden wiped the water from his eyes, his face turning a violent shade of purple. You piece of trash. Do you know how much this silk blend costs? You're dead right. You are done in this town. I will buy the company you work for, just to fire you." "Try it," Ethan said, stepping closer, towering over the soaking, wet bully. "But if you say one more word to her, you're going to leave here with more than just a wetsuit." Braden looked at Ethan's fists, scarred, heavy, and clenched. He looked at the crowd, who weren't laughing anymore. They were staring. "You're crazy," Braden muttered, backing away. "You're a psycho." He turned to his friends. "Let's go. This place smells like poverty anyway." Braden stormed off towards the restrooms, his wet shoes squeaking on the floor, his entourage trailing behind him like confused puppies. Ethan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. His hands were shaking now. He turned to Sophia. "I'm so sorry," Ethan said, grabbing a handful of napkins from the table. "Here, are you okay?" Sophia took the napkins, dabbing at the wine stain. She wasn't crying. She was smiling. A small, tight smile. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "He's a powerful man in this town, Ethan." "He's a bully," Ethan shrugged, though his stomach was churning with anxiety about the consequences. "And I don't like bullies. Look, I'm sorry about your dress. I can pay for the dry cleaning. Well, I can pay you next week." Sophia stopped dabbing the dress. She looked up at Ethan, her eyes analyzing him with an intensity that made him feel like he was being scanned by an X-ray. "You really don't know, do you?" she whispered. "Know what?" Before she could answer, the double doors at the entrance of the banquet hall burst open. 3 men in dark suits walked in. They weren't wearing name tags. They wore earpieces. They moved with military precision, scanning the room until their eyes locked on the dessert table. Ethan stepped in front of Sophia again, instinctively. "Great." Braden called security. But the men didn't look like bouncers. They looked like Secret Service. The lead man, a tall guy with a shaved head, walked straight up to them. He ignored Ethan and nodded respectfully at Sophia. "Miss Corinne," the man said, "the helicopter is fueled and waiting at the airfield, and Mr. Gates is on the secure line. He wants to discuss the acquisition terms before the press release tomorrow morning." Ethan blinked. "Helicopter, Mr. Gates?" Sophia sighed, taking off her glasses and wiping a smudge from the lens. Her posture changed. The shy, hunched girl vanished. She straightened her spine, and suddenly, despite the wine stain and the simple dress, she looked like the tallest person in the room. "Tell Bill he can wait 10 minutes, Sophia said, her voice commanding and crisp. "And tell the pilot to prep for 2 passengers. I'm bringing a guest." The security guard nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Sophia turned to Ethan. The shy smile was gone, replaced by a look of confident amusement. "Ethan," she said, "you offered to pay for my dry cleaning." Ethan stammered, looking from the security guards to her. "That's sweet," she said, "but I think I can cover it. I just sold my company, Nexus AI, for $3.2 billion this afternoon." Ethan's jaw dropped. "Billion? With a B?" "With a B," she confirmed. "And right now, the only person I want to celebrate with is the guy who just risked his job to defend a broke girl." She reached out and took his calloused hand. "Come on, let's get out of here. I have a jet to catch, and I think you need a ride." The silence in the Oak Creek Country Club banquet hall was heavy, the kind of silence that usually follows a car crash. All eyes were glued to Sophia Corrin and the 3 broad-shouldered security agents flanking her. Ethan stood there, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He looked at Sophia. The wine stain was still wet on her dress, but the way she held her head, chin up, eyes sharp behind those thick frames, made the stain look like a badge of honor. "A helicopter," Ethan repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "Sophia, we're in East Derby. People here drive tractors, not helicopters." "I value my time, Ethan," she said simply, "and traffic on I-95 is a nightmare." She turned to leave, her hand still lightly gripping Ethan's arm. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. No one wanted to accidentally bump into the woman who had just announced a net worth larger than the GDP of a small country. But Braden Sterling wasn't the type to let a moment pass without trying to salvage his ego. He had dried his face with a tablecloth, but his expensive suit was still sodden, clinging to his frame. As Sophia and Ethan passed him, Braden stepped out, a desperate, oily smile plastered on his face. "Sophia, wait up!" Braden called out. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a frantic, salesman-like charm. "Look, about the dress. I was just joking. You know me. High school humor. I've been following Nexus AI for years. I didn't realize you were the founder. S. Corrin. I should have known." He tried to step into their path. One of the security agents, a man whose neck was wider than Braden's head, simply stepped forward. He didn't push Braden. He just occupied the space where Braden wanted to be. Braden bounced off the man's chest like a tennis ball. Sophia stopped. She turned slowly to face Braden. The room held its breath. "You didn't know?" Sophia asked, her voice calm but cutting. "You're right, Braden. You didn't know I was a billionaire. You thought I was a broke, struggling nobody. And that's exactly why you treated me like garbage." "Come on, Soph," Braden stammered, sweat mixing with the water on his forehead. "We go way back. I can help you manage that portfolio." "My firm handles high net worth individuals." "Braden," she interrupted, "my company builds predictive behavioral algorithms. We analyze risk, and right now, you look like a very bad investment." She glanced at his wet shoes. "And you owe me a new dress. I'll have my legal team send the bill to your office. It's a vintage Chanel. It costs $12,000. Braden's face went white. The crowd erupted in murmurs. "Let's go, Ethan," Sophia said, turning her back on the stunned room. They walked out of the banquet hall, through the lobby, and into the cool night air. The bass of the music faded behind them. In the parking lot, the contrast was stark. The rusted F-150S and mid-range sedans sat silently, but right at the curb, idling with a low, purring rumble, was a black Cadillac Escalade with tinted windows. The security guard opened the door. Sophia slid in. Ethan hesitated. He looked back at his truck, parked by the dumpsters. "My truck," Ethan said. "I can't just leave it. I need it for work tomorrow." Sophia leaned out of the car. "Give the keys to David," she pointed to the lead agent. "He'll have it detailed and delivered to your house by morning. Get in the car, Ethan, please." Ethan looked at the keys in his hand. Then he looked at Sophia. For the first time in years, he felt like he was stepping off a ledge. He handed the keys to the agent and climbed into the plush leather seat. The interior of the car smelled like vanilla and new money. As they pulled away, leaving the reunion behind, Ethan felt a strange sense of vertigo. "So," Ethan exhaled, rubbing his face, "Billionaire. That's a lot to process. I thought you fixed computers." Sophia took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. She looked exhausted. "I do fix computers. I just fixed them so well that Google decided they couldn't live without them." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because of what just happened back there," she said, gesturing vaguely towards the club. "The moment people see the dollar signs, I stop being Sophia. I become a bank. I become an opportunity. You were the only person tonight who spoke to me before you knew. You defended me when you thought I had nothing." She looked at him, her eyes soft. "That means more to me than the acquisition deal, Ethan. Really." Ethan looked down at his hands, stained with the faint grey dust of concrete that never really washed off. "I just did what was right. I didn't do it for a reward." "I know," she said. "That's why you're here." The car drove not to the airfield, but to the finest hotel in the city, the Rittenhouse. Apparently the helicopter was for show, or a backup plan. Sophia had rented the penthouse suite. As they rode the elevator up to the 30th floor, Ethan felt the crushing weight of his reality returning. He was wearing a thrift store jacket. He had $41.50 in his bank account, and he was standing next to a woman who could buy the building they were standing in. The doors opened to a suite larger than Ethan's entire house. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city lights. A waiter was already waiting with a bottle of champagne. "I can't stay long," Ethan said abruptly, stopping in the foyer. The luxury felt suffocating. "I have to relieve Mrs. Higgins. She goes to bed at 10. Sophia turned, sensing his withdrawal. "Ethan, stay for one drink, please. I just want to feel normal for 5 minutes. I want to talk to my friend." Ethan checked his cracked phone screen. 9:15 p.m. "One drink," he agreed. They sat on the balcony, the city wind whipping around them. They didn't talk about money. They talked about the past 10 years. Ethan told her about the architecture degree he never finished, about his father's illness, about the day he learned to pour concrete. He told her about Jessica leaving, about the silence in the house when Lily was at school. Sophia listened. She didn't offer pity. She offered attention. "I missed out on a lot of life," Sophia admitted, staring at the skyline. "I spent my 20s in a basement coding. I missed weddings, funerals, birthdays. I have a net worth of 10 figures, and my emergency contact is my lawyer." "You have the world at your feet now," Ethan said. "It's lonely at the top, Ethan. It's a cliché, but it's true." She looked at him. "I'm moving back, you know, to Pennsylvania. I bought the old Sterling estate on the hill. Braden's parents had to sell it last year." Ethan laughed. The irony. "I want to build a tech hub here, create jobs, real jobs, not just fast food and retail. I want to help this town." Ethan looked at her with admiration. "You're a good person, Sophia." "I try to be." She paused, then reached into her purse. She pulled out a card. It wasn't a business card. It was a personal number written on heavy stock. "Ethan, if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, call me." Ethan took the card. He felt the texture of the paper. It felt like charity. "I'm good, Sophia," he lied. "We're doing okay." He stood up. "I have to go. Mrs. Higgins gets cranky." Sophia stood too. There was a moment, a brief, charged second, where he thought she might hug him or kiss him. But the gap between them, the construction worker and the tech mogul, felt like a canyon. "Thank you for tonight, Ethan," she said. "See you around, Sophia." He left the suite. He refused the car service and took a bus back to East Derby. He needed the long, bumpy ride to remember who he was. He was Ethan Wright. And he didn't take handouts. The next morning, the high of the reunion had crashed into the brutal reality of a Tuesday. Ethan's truck was in the driveway, as promised. It was cleaner than it had been when he bought it. The dent was still there, but the interior had been detailed, and there was a full tank of gas. It was a kind gesture, but it made Ethan feel small. He dropped Lily off at school. She was coughing a little, a dry, hacking sound that made Ethan's stomach tighten. "Did you take your puffer?" he asked, smoothing her hair. "Yeah, Daddy. I'm okay," she beamed, missing a front tooth. "Are we still going for ice cream on Friday?" "You bet, kiddo," he smiled, knowing he'd have to skip lunch for 3 days to afford it. He drove to the site. The foreman, a gruff man named Miller, was already yelling, "Right, you're late. Get the mixer running." Ethan worked. He hauled 80-pound bags of cement until his shoulders screamed. He shoveled gravel until blisters formed over his old calluses. The sun beat down, hot and unforgiving. All day, the image of Sophia in that penthouse lingered in his mind. The cool air conditioning, the champagne, the silence. It seemed like a dream. At lunch, he sat on a stack of drywall, eating a cold bologna sandwich. His phone buzzed. It was a notification from the local news. Local genius sells tech giant. Sophia Corinne returns to Oak Creek. He clicked the link. There was a picture of her from a press conference that morning. She looked powerful, professional. She was talking about revitalizing the local economy. Hey, right. Miller walked by, kicking Ethan's boot. Stop looking at your phone. Unless you're looking for a new job. Just checking the time, boss, Ethan said, pocketing the phone. Well, check this. Miller handed him a slip of paper. Corporate is cutting hours. Project is over budget. No overtime for the next 2 weeks. Maybe longer. Ethan stared at the paper. No overtime. That was an extra $300 a week. That was the grocery money. That was the electricity bill money. Miller, you can't, Ethan said, standing up. I need those hours. Everyone needs hours, right? You want to complain? Talk to the union rep. Oh, wait, we don't have one. Miller walked away. Ethan sat back down. The bologna sandwich tasted like sawdust. He felt the walls closing in. He had $41.50. The electric bill was $72. Rent was due in 10 days. He finished his shift in a daze. When he picked Lily up from after-school care, she looked pale. My chest hurts, she whispered, leaning her head against the truck window. We'll get home and do a treatment, Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady. It's just the pollen. They got home. The house was stuffy. Ethan went to the thermostat. It was off. He tried the light switch. Nothing. He ran to the kitchen. The digital clock on the microwave was blank. He opened the fridge. The light didn't turn on. They had cut the power. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in his chest. No, 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 he muttered. He fumbled for his phone to call the power company, to beg, to plead. Daddy? Lily's voice was thin. I can't breathe good. Ethan spun around. Lily was sitting on the couch, clutching her chest. Her lips were turning a faint shade of blue. She was gasping, her little ribs heaving with the effort to pull in air. Okay, don't panic, Ethan said, rushing to the bathroom to get her nebulizer. He grabbed the machine, the tubing, the medicine. He ran back to the living room and plugged it into the wall. He flipped the switch. Nothing. Silence. The nebulizer ran on electricity. And the electricity was gone. Ethan stared at the plug in the dead outlet. He felt like he had been punched in the gut. Daddy! Lily wheezed, her eyes wide with terror. I got you, baby. I got you. Ethan scooped her up. She felt light. Too light. He ran out the door, leaving the useless machine behind. He threw her into the truck, buckling her in with shaking hands. He turned the key. The engine sputtered. Come on, he screamed, slamming his hand against the steering wheel. Don't do this to me! The truck groaned and died. The starter clicked, a hollow, mocking sound. The battery was dead. Maybe he left the lights on. Maybe it was just old. It didn't matter. He was trapped. Ethan grabbed his phone. 12% battery. He dialed 911. 911, what is your emergency? My daughter. Asthma attack. She can't breathe. We have no power. My truck died. I need an ambulance at 402 East Elm. Sir, we have a high volume of calls due to the pileup on Route 30. ETA for an ambulance is 20 minutes. 20 minutes, Ethan screamed. She doesn't have 20 minutes. Stay on the line, sir. Keep her calm. Ethan looked at Lily. She was fighting for every breath. Her eyes were rolling back. He hung up. He couldn't wait. He picked her up again and started running. The hospital was 2 miles away. He could run. He had to run. He sprinted down the sidewalk, Lily's dead weight in his arms. His work boots pounded against the pavement. His lungs burned. Think, Ethan, think. Mrs. Higgins didn't drive. Mike was at work across town. Then he remembered. The card. The heavy stock paper in his wallet. He stopped, gasping for air, lowering Lily onto a neighbor's lawn. He pulled out the card. Sophia Corinne. He dialed the number. It rang once. "Hello? This is Sophia. Sophia!" Ethan gasped, his voice breaking. "It's Ethan. Help, please." "Ethan? What's wrong? You sound—" "It's Lily. Asthma. Bad. Power's out. Nebulizer won't work. Truck died. Ambulance is too far. I'm on Elm Street. She's turning blue, Sophia. She's turning blue." There was no hesitation. No questions about why he didn't pay the bill. No judgment. "I see your location," she said, her voice turning into pure steel. "I'm at the construction site on the hill. I'm 2 minutes away. Stay there. Do not move." The line went dead. Ethan knelt over his daughter. "Hold on, Lily. Hold on. She's coming." Lily's eyes were fluttering shut. Her breathing was a terrifying, high-pitched whistle. Ethan cried. He cried tears of rage and helplessness. He was a father. He was supposed to protect her. And he had failed because of $72. 90 seconds later, a roar tore through the quiet neighborhood. The black Escalade screeched around the corner, jumping the curb and tearing up the grass. It slammed to a halt, inches from them. The doors flew open. Sophia jumped out, followed by the security guard, David. David didn't ask questions. He grabbed Lily from Ethan's arms and sprinted to the car. "Get in!" Sophia yelled. They piled into the back. David was already driving before the doors were closed. "Hospital, now!" Sophia commanded. "And call ahead. Tell them we have a pediatric code blue coming in. Tell them if they aren't ready, I will buy the hospital and fire the entire board." She turned to Ethan. He was shaking, holding Lily's hand. Sophia reached into a compartment and pulled out a portable oxygen tank and a mask. "I have severe allergies," she said, fitting the mask over Lily's face. "I always keep this in the car." She turned the valve. Oxygen hissed. Lily took a ragged breath, then another. "She's going to be okay, Ethan," Sophia said, her hand gripping his shoulder tight. "She's going to be okay." Ethan couldn't speak. He just watched his daughter's chest rise and fall, and for the first time that day, he allowed himself to breathe. The emergency room at Oak Creek General was a chaotic mess of fluorescent lights and misery. But when Sophia Corinne walks in, chaos tends to organize itself. David, the security guard, carried Lily through the sliding doors. Ethan ran beside him. Sophia was on her phone, barking orders. A nurse at the triage desk looked up, bored. "Sir, you need to sign in and wait your turn. We have a—" "She's not waiting." Sophia slammed her hand on the counter. It wasn't a tantrum. It was a declaration of war. "She is in respiratory distress. She needs epinephrine and steroids now. Ma'am, I don't care who you are. The protocol is—" "I am Sophia Corinne," she said, lowering her glasses, "and I am currently donating a new MRI wing to this hospital. If this child does not see a doctor in 10 seconds, I will pull the funding and sue you personally for negligence. Do you want to test me?" The nurse blinked. The color drained from her face. She hit a red button on the desk. "Code Blue, PEDS Trauma 1. A team of doctors swarmed them. They took Lily from David's arms and whisked her behind the double doors. Ethan tried to follow, but a doctor stopped him. "Sir, let us work. We'll come for you." "Done." Ethan collapsed into a plastic chair in the waiting room. He put his head in his hands. His clothes were covered in drywall dust and sweat. He looked like a wreck. Sophia sat next to him. She didn't check her emails. She didn't make calls. She just sat. "She's stabilizing," Sophia said softly after a few minutes. "I heard the doctor say her saturation is coming up." Ethan nodded, but he didn't look up. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep, dark shame. "I couldn't pay the bill," he whispered. "What?" "The electric bill." Ethan looked at her, his eyes red and hollow. "That's why the power went out. That's why the machine didn't work. I had $40, Sophia. I chose." I don't know what I chose, but I failed her. Ethan, no, don't. He stood up, pacing the small room. Don't tell me it's okay. It's not okay. I'm a grown man and I can't keep the lights on. I went to that reunion to eat free food. That's how pathetic this is. He gestured to her. And you live in a different universe. You have oxygen tanks in your car. You snap your fingers and doors open. I'm the guy who fixes your porch. Is that what you think? Sophia stood up, her voice rising. You think I care about the money? Ethan, I have billions, and I would trade it all to have someone look at me the way you look at your daughter. You ran 2 miles with her in your arms. You would die for her. That is what makes you a father, not the electric bill. Love doesn't pay for medicine, Sophia, Ethan shouted. People in the waiting room turned to look. Love doesn't keep the lights on. Just then, a woman in a business suit walked into the waiting area with a clipboard. She looked strictly bureaucratic. She approached Ethan. Mr. Wright? Yes? We're processing your daughter's admission. I see here your insurance. It's the state-subsidized plan. It seems it lapsed last month. Did you miss a renewal form? Ethan closed his eyes. He had moved addresses 3 months ago. The mail probably went to the old apartment. I must have missed it. Well, the woman sighed, clicking her pen. This creates a problem. The treatment she needs, the overnight observation, and the respiratory therapy is significant. We need a deposit of $2,000 to admit her to a private room. Otherwise, she stays in the ER hallway on a gurney until a ward bed opens up, and the wait is currently 18 hours. 18 hours? Ethan stared at her. She's 7 years old. It's policy, sir. Without insurance or a deposit. Ethan looked at his wallet. He had nothing. He was completely, utterly defeated. The system had won. I don't have it, he whispered. The woman started to speak, but a black credit card slammed onto the clipboard. It was made of metal. It made a heavy clank sound. Put her in the VIP suite on the 4th floor, Sophia said, her voice dripping with ice. Put the entire stay on this, and get her the best pulmonologist in the state. If you have to fly him in, do it. The administrator looked at the card. An American Express Centurion. The black card. Then she looked at Sophia. Yes, Miss Corinne, right away. Apologies for the confusion. The woman scurried away like a frightened mouse. Ethan stood there, staring at the swinging doors where the woman had vanished. He felt a mix of immense relief and crushing emasculation. He turned to Sophia. I can't pay you back. I didn't ask you to. But I can't. I can't live like this, Sophia. I can't be your charity case. Sophia stepped closer to him. She took his rough, dusty hands in hers. You're not a charity case, Ethan. You're my partner. What? I told you I'm building a tech hub here, she said, her eyes locking onto his. I have the software. I have the vision. But I don't know how to build things. I don't know concrete. I don't know structures. I need a project manager for the construction of the Nexus East headquarters. Ethan stared at her. I'm a laborer, Sophia, not a manager. You were going to be an architect, she corrected him. You know how to read prints. You know the codes. And unlike the guys in suits, you know what it's actually like to pour the foundation. I need someone I can trust. I need someone who stands up to bullies. I need you. She paused. The starting salary is $150,000 a year, plus full benefits, plus stock options, and a signing bonus that covers whatever bills you have. Ethan stood frozen. The numbers swirled in his head. It wasn't just money. It was a lifeline. It was a future. Why? He asked. Because, she smiled, a tear finally escaping her eye. When I was the poor girl with the stained dress, you were the only one who saw me. Now let me see you. Ethan looked towards the double doors where Lily was safe. Then he looked at Sophia. He squeezed her hands. When do I start? 12 months later, the skyline of Oak Creek had changed forever. Where the decaying Sterling estate once stood, a marvel of glass, steel, and sustainable timber, now rose against the Pennsylvania clouds. It was the Nexus East headquarters, a tech campus designed to rival anything in Silicon Valley, but built with the grit of the Rust Belt. Ethan Wright stood on the fourth-floor observation deck, the wind tugging at his white hard hat. He wasn't wearing a thrift store jacket anymore. He wore a fitted navy blazer over a crisp button-down, and on his feet were high-end, steel-toed boots that looked more like hiking gear than workwear. He held a tablet in his hand, reviewing the structural load data for the atrium. "Hey, boss," a voice crackled over his walkie-talkie. "The glazier is here for the skylight installation. They need a signature." "Send them up, Miller," Ethan replied, pressing the button. He smiled. Miller, his old foreman who used to scream at him for taking a water break, now reported to him. And to Miller's credit, he was a lot nicer when he was being paid double the union rate with full benefits. Ethan walked to the edge of the deck. Below, the site was buzzing. 300 workers, all local hires, were busy landscaping, painting, and wiring. The parking lot was full of new trucks. The local diner down the street had hired 3 new cooks just to handle the lunch rush. Sophia hadn't just built a building. She had jump-started the heart of the town. A movement at the security gate caught Ethan's eye. A man was arguing with the guard. He looked agitated. Ethan sighed, clipped the radio to his belt, and took the construction elevator down. When the doors opened, he saw the visitor. It was Braden Sterling. The year hadn't been kind to the former king of Oak Creek. His shiny suit was gone, replaced by wrinkled khakis and a polo shirt that had seen better days. He looked thinner, his face gaunt with stress. "I'm telling you, I know the project manager," Braden was shouting at the guard. "We went to high school together." "Is there a problem here?" Ethan's voice was calm, authoritative. Braden spun around. He blinked, taking in Ethan's appearance. The power dynamic had shifted so violently it was almost palpable. Ethan stood tall, healthy, and in charge. Braden looked like a ghost. "Ethan," Braden exhaled, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Man, you look incredible. I heard you were running the show." "What do you need, Braden?" Ethan asked, crossing his arms. "Look, I'll be straight with you." Braden shifted his weight nervously. "The crypto market crashed. My firm, well, they downsized. I'm looking for work. Sales, management, anything. I know this place is going to need a sales team for the commercial leasing." Ethan looked at the man who had poured wine on Sophia. He looked at the man who had threatened to have him fired. He felt no anger. He just felt pity. "We aren't leasing," Ethan said. "Sophia is using the whole campus for R&D. Right. Braden wiped sweat from his upper lip. "But maybe you need a liaison. Come on, Ethan. We go way back. Remember the football team?" "I remember," Ethan said softly. "I also remember you mocking a woman for the shoes she wore." Braden flinched. "We're fully staffed, Braden," Ethan said, signaling the guard to open the gate for a delivery truck. "But I heard the temp agency in West Derby is hiring for the warehouse shift. It starts at 18 an hour. It's honest work. Might be good for you." Ethan turned and walked away. He didn't wait for a response. He didn't need to gloat. Living well was the only revenge that mattered. He took the elevator back up, his heart light. When he reached the top deck, he found someone waiting for him. Sophia was standing by the railing, looking out over the town. She wore a yellow hard hat over her hair, which was loose today, blowing in the wind. She wasn't wearing the black dress from the reunion. She was wearing jeans and a Nexus hoodie. "You handled that well," she said, not turning around. "You saw? I have cameras everywhere, remember?" She turned, her eyes crinkling behind her glasses. "Algorithm is watching." Ethan laughed, walking over to stand beside her. "He wanted a job. And you sent him to the warehouse? Everyone has to start somewhere. I started with a shovel." Sophia looked at him. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the steel beams. "You did more than start with a shovel, Ethan. You built this. I provided the money, sure. But you made it real." You managed the cruise. You solved the zoning issues. You kept the timeline. This is your building as much as it is mine." "I was just doing my job," Ethan said, looking down at the town he had lived in his whole life. "It feels different now. Hopeful." Speaking of hopeful, Sophia reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I just got off the phone with Dr. Aris." Ethan froze. Dr. Aris was Lily's pulmonologist, the specialist Sophia had flown in that terrifying night in the ER. "Is she okay?" Ethan asked, his throat tightening. "She's more than okay," Sophia smiled, handing him the paper. "Her latest lung function test came back at 98%. The inflammation is gone. She's cleared to play soccer this fall." Ethan took the paper. He stared at the numbers. Tears pricked his eyes. For years he had lived in fear of every pollen count, every cold snap. "She wants to be a goalie," Ethan laughed, a wet, choked sound. "She says she likes the gloves." "She's a fighter," Sophia said softly, "like her dad." They stood in silence for a moment, high above the world. The connection between them, which had started as a spark of recognition at a reunion, had grown into a steady, burning flame over the last year of late-night blueprint reviews and shared takeout dinners. Ethan looked at Sophia. He saw the billionaire, yes, but he also saw the girl who liked macaroons and math. He saw the woman who had saved his daughter's life, not with money, but with action. "Sophia," he said. "Yeah?" "I don't have a pink envelope on my counter anymore," he said. "I have a savings account. I have a college fund for Lily. I have a future." "Thank you." Sophia stepped closer. She reached out and adjusted the collar of his blazer. "You don't owe me anything, Ethan. You earned it." "But—" She hesitated, looking up at him through her lashes. "There is one thing I'm still missing." "You have $3 billion, Ethan teased gently. "What could you possibly be missing?" "Someone to share the view with," she whispered. Ethan didn't hesitate this time. He didn't think about the class divide or the money. He thought about the woman standing in front of him. He reached out, cupping her face in his hands, hands that were still strong, but no longer rough with despair. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. He leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't a desperate kiss, or a tentative one. It was solid. It was foundational. It was a promise of a structure built to last. Below them, the lights of the new campus flickered on for the first time, illuminating the darkening valley. Later that night, Ethan drove his new truck, a modest upgrade, practical and safe, back to the house he had bought 3 months ago. It wasn't a mansion. It was a nice 4-bedroom colonial with a big yard and a porch that didn't need fixing. He walked inside. The house was warm. The lights were on. "Daddy!" Lily ran down the hallway, wearing a purple soccer jersey that was 2 sizes too big. She jumped into his arms, her breathing clear, strong, and effortless. "Did you build the skyscraper today?" she asked. "We're getting close, kiddo," Ethan said, kissing her forehead. "We're getting close." He put her down and looked toward the kitchen, where Sophia was already taking cartons of Chinese food out of a bag, laughing at something on her phone. She looked up and smiled at him, a smile that promised there were no more storms they couldn't weather together. Ethan Wright hung his keys on the hook. The pink envelopes were gone. The struggle was over. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving. He was home. Ethan Wright went to that reunion thinking he had nothing to offer, only to realize that his integrity was worth more than any stock portfolio. He stood up for Sophia, not because she was rich, but because it was the right thing to do. And that one act of kindness unlocked a future he never dared to dream of. It's a powerful reminder. You never know who you're talking to, and you never know how quickly the wheel of fortune can turn. If you enjoyed this story of justice, redemption, and romance, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you believe that good karma always comes back around, comment the word karma down below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss a story. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.